Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's topic name is Stop Overthinking, Start Talking.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are tearing into one of the most frustrating and honestly paralyzing mental traps out there. That relentless internal editor that just stops you from talking altogether. We're talking about the curse of overthinking, and we're diving straight into a problem that I think hits almost everyone at some point, usually in the most crucial moments. So, picture this.
Yeah.
You're at a networking event, or maybe your boss asks you a direct question in a really high-stakes meeting.
Right. The spotlight is on you.
Exactly. The opportunity to contribute is right there, but it's only there for a split second. And your mind, instead of just offering a thought, it goes into full crisis mode. It starts racing, What should I say? Is that smart enough? Will they think I'm boring?
Or worse, that you're incompetent.
Yes. And while all of this is happening, this whole internal orchestration of the perfect line is just eating up all your mental bandwidth. And that conversational window, the one that was open a second ago, just slams shut. The moment is gone. The opportunity for a genuine connection, for a real exchange, it just evaporates.
It's excruciating, isn't it? The irony is that this internal editor, the thing we believe is protecting our image, is actually doing the complete opposite. It's robbing us of the chance to be present, to build a real human connection.
Well, you've really framed the issue. It's what I'd call a truly modern curse, the curse of overthinking. And it's massively exacerbated by our current digital world.
How so?
Just think about the environment we live in now. It's an age of curated perfection. Every post you see on social media is filtered, edited, probably reshot 10 times.
Every email is drafted and then redrafted.
Exactly. We're conditioned to have the luxury of revision. We expect to be able to craft our words in this controlled, low-stakes environment. We've built this expectation of flawlessness into our communication.
So when we're faced with a real-time conversation, there's no backspace button.
None. And that triggers this immense sense of danger. It feels exposing, almost reckless, because we haven't given our minds that chance to process and refine everything to perfection.
We're mistaking a simple conversation for a performance.
That is the ultimate mistake. We've forgotten that the real magic of human connection, the stuff that builds relationships and creates those unforgettable moments, it rarely depends on perfectly constructed sentences. It thrives in the chaos.
In the messiness.
In the wonderfully messy, imperfect, gloriously spontaneous act of just talking. And the whole mission of this deep dive is to show you why chasing that connection has to win out over chasing flawless delivery.
Okay, so let's unpack that core psychological barrier. Let's call it the prison of perfect phrasing. We see this paradox all the time, don't we? Highly intelligent, insightful people who just stay silent.
All the time. It's not because they lack knowledge. It's an overwhelming excess of self-editing. It's the moment the mind gets trapped in this loop of optimizing instead of just outputting.
Right. Let's go back to that anecdote you mentioned about Sarah, the marketing executive. She was brilliant, right?
Yeah.
Incredible strategic vision, really unique ideas.
Oh, a total rock star on paper. But for her, team meetings were a form of internal torture.
And it wasn't about the content of the meeting itself. It was the frantic race happening inside her own head.
Absolutely. She'd sit there, formulating her thoughts, refining her phrasing, polishing the perfect little anecdote to support her idea, just waiting for that one single optimal moment to jump in.
She needed 3 perfect sentences.
And she'd spend the entire meeting trying to write and edit those 3 sentences in her head.
And the really cruel twist is that by the time she'd refined it to perfection, by the time the sentence was grammatically flawless and strategically brilliant in her mind,
The conversation had already moved on. The agenda item was closed.
Yeah.
Her moment was just gone.
the consequences of that are just disastrous. Her colleagues, they're not thinking, wow, Sarah's deep in thought. They're thinking she's disengaged.
Or that she lacks initiative, or maybe just doesn't have any ideas. All while her mind is working overtime, churning and burning. But her external contribution is zero.
It's a classic case of the cure being so much worse than the disease. Her problem wasn't a lack of smart ideas. It was this overwhelming compulsion to self-edit, driven by this fear of being seen as anything less than brilliant.
She imposed this crushing, impossible standard on herself. It's rooted in this debilitating belief that every single word she says has to be valuable, profound, or perfect.
And by aiming for that impossible standard, she contributed nothing at all. She let the hunt for the best sentence stop her from offering any sentence.
And that's the core of the trap. Overthinking convinces you that silence is fundamentally safer than imperfection. It argues that saying nothing, which has zero risk of judgment, is better than saying something that might not land perfectly.
But what's the long-term cost of that safety?
It's profound. It's isolation. When you operate that way, you are systematically stripping away your own authenticity. You're building walls around yourself. You're always performing as this carefully constructed character who never makes a mistake.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. And that flawless character feels disconnected and cold to the people around you. It prevents any real relationship from forming.
And when you think about it, the connections that really matter, the moments that stick with you, they're never the ones that came from a flawless presentation.
Never. They're the ones that involve the raw honesty of an unscripted moment. The clumsy admission, the vulnerable question, that moment someone just says, hang on, I'm confused.
Those are the moments of real connection.
Because people are trying to communicate authentically, not deliver lines. The ultimate irony is that by trying so hard to seem perfect, we make ourselves forgettable. But by being willing to be messy, we become truly memorable and relatable. The risk of being imperfect is the price of admission for real human connection.
Okay, so let's shift gears from the symptoms, the silence, the delay, to what's actually going on under the hood. This isn't just a confidence issue. It's a massive information processing challenge in the brain that leads to what we'd call cognitive overload.
That's a critical distinction. To understand the cure, you have to understand the mechanism. Our brain, as amazing as it is, really struggles when it's faced with the social complexity and the perceived risk of a high-stakes conversation.
So when you see a situation as high stakes, a first date, a presentation, whatever, two major parts of your brain kick into gear at the same time. And they're often working against each other.
That's right. First, you've got the prefrontal cortex, the PFC. Think of this as the brain's CEO. It's in charge of logic, planning, decision-making.
And it goes into absolute hyperdrive, right? Trying to calculate the best possible response. It's evaluating phrasing, checking for implications, running models on how the other person might react.
It's trying to manage the entire chessboard. But at the exact same time, the brain's core alarm system, the amygdala, lights up like a Christmas tree.
Ah, the emotional center, the danger detector.
Exactly. And because you're anxious about being judged, the amygdala starts flagging every possible threat. It's that visceral voice screaming in your head. Are they judging me? Am I going to embarrass myself? They saw you hesitate. Abort. Abort.
So the PFC is demanding a perfect plan, and the amygdala is demanding complete safety. It's like trying to conduct an orchestra while also playing every single instrument.
That's a great metaphor. You're trying to process what the other person is saying, predict where the conversation is going next, formulate your own response, evaluate that response, consider three alternatives.
And monitor your body language, all while that alarm is blaring in your ear.
It's not just playing an instrument, it's conducting the symphony, playing the cello and the flute, reviewing the sheet music, and fighting off a swarm of mosquitoes all at once. The system is just completely overwhelmed.
And the result is total cognitive overload. The mental traffic jam becomes so dense that it actually blocks the mechanism for speech. You're so busy thinking about how to talk perfectly that you can't actually talk.
And that internal paralysis shows up on the outside in ways that are deeply counterproductive. Your face might go blank or you furrow your brow in concentration. The verbal response is delayed.
And the natural rhythm of the conversation is just shattered.
Which leads directly to the self-fulfilling prophecy. You're trying so desperately to avoid seeming awkward that the delay in the visible effort you're exerting guarantees awkwardness.
The attempt to be perfect makes the interaction stiff and clumsy.
And that just reinforces the whole cycle. The feedback loop gets stronger. The fundamental solution then has to be to stop treating every single conversation like a high-stakes performance that requires a full dress rehearsal. We have to internally de-escalate the threat.
So if the solution is de-escalation, how do we train our brains to actually trust their spontaneous output? I think the best illustration here comes from the world of improvisation, specifically jazz.
Oh, absolutely. Jazz musicians get something that conversational overthinkers miss entirely. The best performances aren't planned. They emerge from being completely present and trusting your ability to respond to the moment.
It's the art of real-time collaboration.
It is. There's a concept called comping. It's the art of spontaneous accompaniment. A jazz quartet isn't reading 4 separate scripts. They are listening intensely to each other.
To the phrasing, the rhythm.
The deviations. And they respond in real time. They adapt instantly. They trust that whatever emerges from that collaboration will be richer than anything they could have planned alone.
But hold on, if we're using that analogy, we have to acknowledge that jazz musicians practice for years. They learn scales, theory, technique. Isn't that like preparing talking points? Where's the line between helpful preparation and debilitating paralysis?
That's a really sharp point, and it highlights the crucial difference. Jazz musicians practice vocabulary. They learn the scales, the chords, the patterns, so that when the moment comes, the tools are ready.
But they don't practice the solo itself.
They don't pre-write the solo. In conversation, preparation means having the knowledge, understanding the topic. Paralysis is when you try to pre-write the entire performance. We need to focus on listening intently and letting our knowledge base deliver the response, not trying to engineer a perfect one.
So when you shift your focus from scripting your own lines to just genuinely listening, the performance anxiety has to drop.
It does. You stop trying to deliver a flawless speech, and you just start reacting honestly. The words that come out might not be perfect, but they'll be honest ones, and those are what create a real connection.
Do you have a personal story about this, right? The job interview.
I do, and it really cemented this for me. Years ago, I was up for this pivotal job. I spent days preparing. I built this fortress of perfect, strategic answers to every predictable question.
You had your script, and it was bulletproof.
I thought it was. And then the interviewer asked a question that was completely off script, something you could never prepare for. He leaned in and said, "What is something significant you believed 5 years ago that you no longer believe today?"
Wow, that's a curveball designed to break the prepared speaker. That's when the overload usually hits.
And it did, for a second. My fortress just crumbled. I started scrambling in my head for some impressive, academic-sounding answer. My internal editor was screaming for a brilliant, unique response.
But you didn't give one.
No, I stopped, I took a breath, and realized the performance wasn't working. So I just told the simple truth, completely unfiltered.
What did you say?
I said, "You know what? For years, I believed that having the right, definitive answer was the most important thing. I spent the last 5 years realizing I had that completely backwards. Now, I believe that asking the right, insightful questions is far more valuable than having pre-written answers."
And that just changed the whole dynamic.
Instantly. It wasn't eloquent, it wasn't crafted, but it was undeniably authentic, and it led to the deepest, most insightful conversation of the whole interview process. The interviewer later told me that was the turning point, not because the answer was revolutionary, but because I was willing to drop the polish and just be real.
That experience really highlights the core point here. The moment we dropped the mask, we realized the tyranny wasn't the audience. It was our own self-imposed need for flawless delivery.
Which brings us to challenging the idea that perfectionism is a virtue in conversation. Outside of very specific fields, like surgery or engineering, perfectionism is an outright tyrant. In dialogue, it demands the impossible. Flawless spontaneity.
He's an oxymoron.
A total contradiction. Let's just lay out what this tyrant demands, because it's absurd when you hear it. In a single conversation, perfectionism demands 6 simultaneous flawless tasks. First, you have to say accurately the right thing.
The optimal choice of words. And you have to say it at accurately the right time.
Hitting that tiny, fleeting window of opportunity. Third, it has to be in accurately the right tone with no chance of being misunderstood.
Fourth, you have to have accurately the right body language. No fidgeting.
And fifth, you have to be reading the other person perfectly, understanding their true internal state, not just their words. And finally, the 6th demand. You have to adjust all 5 of those things in real time, without any awkward pauses or stumbles.
It's an impossible workload. No human being can function under that kind of pressure. It's a guaranteed recipe for failure, which just leads you back to silence.
Right. And the crucial insight is that skilled conversationalists, the people who seem so effortless, they don't see those stumbles as failures. They see them as features, not bugs.
How do you mean features?
When a less confident person fumbles, it triggers shame and they withdraw. But a skilled conversationalist just addresses it. They might laugh it off or say, "Wait, that came out wrong, let me rephrase."
Or just, "Hang on, I lost my train of thought."
Exactly. That willingness to clarify, to laugh, to correct, it's proof that something real is happening between 2 human beings, not 2 PR machines delivering sterile statements. The willingness to be messy is the strongest signal that you're authentic.
And here's a secret that should be liberating for anyone listening. Nobody, absolutely nobody, expects your first sentence to be brilliant.
We hold that opening line to such an impossibly high standard. We treat it like the climax of the whole performance.
But it's not the main event.
Not at all. It's just tuning the instruments before the symphony begins. The real connection happens after the opening, once the tension is gone and you've found a rhythm.
And yet we agonize over the icebreaker, don't we? Worrying that our greeting isn't clever enough.
It's totally wasted anxiety.
Yeah.
The best opening line is just whatever gets the conversation started. A simple "hi" or "that speaker was interesting, wasn't she?" is enough. Breaking the silence is what matters.
I love that conference story you shared about the man who broke through that paralysis.
It's the perfect example. I was watching people line up to talk to a keynote speaker. Everyone was delivering these polished, smart-sounding questions, trying to impress her. Then this one man walks up and just admits his struggle.
What did she say?
He looked a bit awkward and said, "I have no idea what clever question to ask you, but I really enjoyed your talk and felt I had to tell you that, even though I'm usually terrified of this."
That vulnerability must have been so disarming.
It was. The speaker laughed and said, "That is honestly one of the best and most appreciated opening lines I've heard all day." That admission of imperfection cut through all the noise. They ended up talking for 20 minutes and started a collaboration later. The perfection was in his willingness to be genuine.
And that story brings us to the massive, immediate benefit of stopping the script writing. You instantly free up all this cognitive energy for actually listening. The listening revolution.
It is a revolution. Because most of us aren't really listening. We're pseudo-listening. We're just waiting for our turn to talk. We're formulating our witty response or replaying something we wish we'd said earlier.
We're performing the act of listening, we're nodding, making eye contact, but our brain is lost in its own script rehearsal. We miss the key details, the nuance, the real emotion behind the words.
This shift is transformative when you commit to radical listening. When your focus is genuinely on understanding the speaker, not preparing your response, just pure comprehension, you're in a totally different mode. You are present.
So let's make this practical. Here's a transformative experiment for you listening. Next time you're in a conversation, commit to this one rule. I will not plan my next response until the other person has completely finished speaking. Just listen fully.
When you do that, what we call the deepening effect kicks in naturally. Your responses become so much easier because they come from authentic curiosity about what you just heard. They're not fabricated by your panic planning brain.
So you start asking relevant follow-up questions.
Yes, and making real connections because you're responding to what was actually said, not what you pre-programmed. And the beautiful outcome is that the other person feels truly seen and heard.
And when they feel that, they relax, they open up. The whole conversation deepens organically without anyone forcing it.
Which brings us back to vulnerability. We avoid spontaneous speech because we fear vulnerability. Speaking without a script means risking that you'll reveal a flaw, or uncertainty, or a real, unedited feeling.
But all the research on human connection is crystal clear on this. Vulnerability is the non-negotiable gateway to genuine relationships. There's no shortcut.
Think about it. When you're polished and perfect, you create emotional distance. People might admire it, but they can't connect with it. It's impressive, but it's cold.
But the moment you stumble or admit you don't know something,
You instantly become human. You become relatable. And people connect with humanity because they feel those same fears and doubts themselves. That difference between admiration and connection is everything.
polished perfection invites admiration but creates distance. Vulnerability makes you relatable.
Exactly. And the people worth keeping in your life are the ones who appreciate your humanness, not your flawless performance. They value the risk you take by being real.
Okay, but we have to acknowledge that context matters here. Not all conversations are the same. In professional or academic settings, there's a strong pressure to be thoughtful. Think before you speak.
And that's necessary advice. But when it tips into paralysis, it backfires spectacularly. That's the professional paradox. The colleague who needs 5 minutes to formulate the perfect response in a brainstorming meeting.
People just stop asking them for input.
Exactly. Their innovative ideas get trapped behind that wall of self-editing. Innovation thrives on messy, half-formed conversations where people feel safe enough to think out loud.
The most effective professionals find that middle ground. They're thoughtful, but not paralyzed. They know when precision is required, like in a formal document, and when flow is more important, like in a creative session.
They're comfortable saying, I'm just thinking out loud here, or let me try to articulate this, I'm still working it out. They prioritize the process over the polished product in the moment.
And this damage is even more acute in personal relationships. If you're constantly editing yourself around your loved ones, True intimacy is impossible. Intimacy is built on those small, fragile moments of realness.
It's saying what you actually feel, even if it comes out clumsy. Maintaining a perfect character for the people closest to you is exhausting, and it's deeply lonely.
We should also widen the lens to culture because communication standards are not universal. In some cultures, indirectness and deliberation are prized.
Absolutely. In high-context cultures, silence can be a sign of thoughtfulness or respect. Speaking too spontaneously might seem impatient, but in low-context cultures, directness is valued, and silence might look like disengagement.
So is there a universal constant that cuts across all these different styles?
I believe there is, and it's presence. Regardless of your culture's style, the person you're with can always sense whether you are actually there with them, or if you're lost inside your own head, running that internal script rehearsal. Presence is the ultimate marker of respect.
And our ability to be present is being deeply eroded by the digital age. Digital communication, text, email, it gives us that addictive luxury of revision.
We've conditioned ourselves to expect perfection because we're so used to fixing our stumbles before anyone sees them.
Which creates this dissonance. We have all these tools to connect, but we struggle to have a meaningful, spontaneous conversation with the person sitting right across from us.
That ability for real-time spontaneity is becoming an atrophied skill. We have to rebuild our tolerance for imperfection and treat it like a muscle that needs practice. We have to reset our internal standard from perfect or nothing to realness first.
So let's turn all of this analysis into action. If we agree that stopping overthinking isn't a simple switch, but a deep pattern we need to interrupt, what are the concrete steps we can take?
It all comes down to a practice of presence. I think there are 5 concrete, actionable steps to interrupt that cycle.
The first one is simply notice without judgment. You have to become aware of the moment the pattern kicks in. Pay attention to that trapped, heavy feeling of rehearsing. Just acknowledging it without self-criticism is the first step.
Second, give a strict time limit. When you feel that trap closing, use a simple rule. Count to 3 in your head, then speak. You have to break the silence immediately. This rule physically overrides the part of your brain demanding perfection.
And you have to trust that you can clarify later. You can't connect while you're analyzing, but you can always correct what you said once you've started.
Third, and this is maybe the most liberating one, embrace the good enough. You don't need brilliance. You just need something that moves the conversation forward, even by a millimeter.
So what are some examples of good enough lines?
Instead of dazzling insight, just use a simple prompt. That's an interesting take. Tell me more about that. Or, I hadn't thought about it that way. These aren't brilliant, but they are crucial conversational lubricants. They keep the connection flowing.
Fourth, practice low-stakes conversations. Use these micro-interactions as a safe training ground. Build muscle memory for spontaneity. Chat with the barista. Make a comment to the person next to you in line.
This is where you experiment with speaking before you're ready. If you fumble a line about the weather, the consequence is 0. But you gain a small, crucial victory over the internal editor. You prove to your amygdala that imperfection isn't fatal.
And the fifth and final step, reframe mistakes. When you inevitably say something awkward or clumsy, and you have to interrupt the habitual self-criticism. Instead of thinking, I'm an idiot, try a small mental shift. Oh, that was human of me.
It changes the emotional feeling instantly from shame to acceptance. It validates your humanness and short-circuits that negative feedback loop.
I also want to spend a moment on what you call the small talk revolution, because small talk gets such a bad rap, it's often dismissed as superficial.
And that dismissal completely misunderstands its function. Small talk is the doorway to meaningful connection. It's the warm-up. It establishes safety, it assesses rapport, all in a low-pressure way.
It's the foundation of the building. You can't have the penthouse without the foundation.
Exactly. Once you see small talk for what it is, a simple human way of acknowledging shared presence, it becomes so much easier. You're not trying to be witty, you're just being present. And from that presence, interesting things often emerge naturally.
We have to close by emphasizing the liberation of starting. A conversation is so forgiving. If you start poorly, you can recover. If you say something unclear, you can clarify it 2 sentences later. It's not a final exam.
The most crucial action is simply to start talking. Break the silence. Offer something, anything. Once you take that first step, the conversation itself will guide you far better than your internal editor ever could.
And that practice curve is so important to remember. The first time you speak before you're ready, it feels terrifying. The 10th time, it feels more natural. And by the 100th time, it's genuinely liberating.
You start to trust that the words will come, and you realize people are far less judgmental than your anxiety suggests. The connections are made when the guard is dropped. Go take the risk of being real instead of perfect. Just start talking.
This has been a critical deep dive, and we invite you to take the final challenge. In your very next conversation, try speaking before the phrasing is perfected in your head. Use that 3-second rule.
The world does not need more perfect, polished communicators. It needs more authentic ones. People willing to be present, imperfect, and human with each other.
Just think about the opportunities for connection and learning you've lost by waiting for the perfect words. The cost of waiting is just staggering.
And remember that people often find your moments of imperfection the most relatable, trustworthy moments of all.
That authentic spontaneity, your messy, imperfect voice, is not just enough. It is exactly what is needed to foster genuine human connection in an age saturated with edited content. Go take that risk of being real. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.